a good place to be. Good evening. Tonight is the Ritenour Board of Education's work session. I'd like to welcome everybody, and first off, I'd like to make a moment to be very thoughtful of Vanessa Enriquez Plimbot, because she's unable to make it tonight, nor will she be able to make it to graduation, as she has her stepfather had passed away, and so we want to all offer our condolences to Vanessa and her family during this time of grief. Her board working with us is very important, but we also understand how important family is in the same respect. So we just want to be very thoughtful of her and thinking of her the next coming weeks in this whole process of grieving. Moving on, I'd like to look at 2.01 for the President's Report. Ritenour High School graduation will be this Sunday, June the 6th at 6 p.m. at the Powerplex. I know that we're all looking forward to that. The AEL graduation will be June the 8th at 7 o'clock in our auditorium here at Ritenour. We will also have our Board of Education business meeting on June the 10th at 7 p.m. here in the lower lobby. We will also be having our day of celebration for Independence Day for our holiday on June the 5th, since it falls on a Sunday, and the district will be closed. On July the 8th, the Board of Education business meeting will be at 5 p.m. at the Admin Center. Yay. So we're returning back to home.
Awesome. Could I speak on those just a bit?
Yes.
Dr. Owen? So board members, so the July 8th business meeting, we always have a summer retreat. Put in the Friday memo about combining the summer board retreat with the business meeting on July 8th, and that would avoid working around schedules at the end of June of trying to organize that meeting. So if there is a conflict with July 8th for a 5 to 8 meeting, the July business meeting agenda is always very short. It's usually personnel items. I thought that would be a great time for us to be together for our summer retreat work. So please reach out to me or to Lisa or to Stacy if there's conflicts around that. About high school graduation this weekend. So the high school team is putting the finishing touches on the plans for high school graduation. We have materials that we're going to be sharing with you tonight. Michelle is pushing out board directions as well as seating charts, I believe. I'll put additional information in the Friday memo tomorrow, but I look forward to being with you on Sunday at the Powerplex, which was the St. Louis Mills Mall. Your parking passes are included with the information as well. And as you can see in the directions to the board, a 4:30 arrival is recommended as it's earlier. There's going to be a large number of cars all coming to the same area. Board members are going to be parking in a specific area that's separate from the audience. However, coming in off of 370 to get to the parking lot area, there's going to be a lot of backup. So I would encourage you, if possible, to arrive as close to 4:30 as possible. That would allow you to avoid all of the traffic coming into the Powerplex area. We'll have our own Board of Education and Administration preparation area like we've had in the past. The high school has all of the board gowns together. So I feel like we're in a good place for Sunday. We know that because of it being a new venue, there's a lot of different pieces, a lot of moving parts. There could be some bumps that we're experiencing on Sunday, but there's a lot of people putting a lot of finishing touches on what we hope to be an amazing ceremony. So that's June 6th. If you have any questions, please reach out to me after the meeting tonight, tomorrow, or over the weekend.
I just have a quick question. I just wanted to know part of the procedures. Are we planning on shaking hands with these students?
So there isn't a plan to shake hands. There is a plan to pass out the diploma
Just
jackets.
the diploma, no.
We're not shaking hands, but we can still hug. Just joking.
So the district direction is hand out the diploma jacket if you choose to engage in risky behavior. I guess that's a board member choice. Right. So please reach out with any other questions. Great question, Penny. Then also, board members, next Tuesday on the 8th, we're going to be together with Miss Musimic and the AEL team. We're expecting 25 graduates at this point, could be more.
Hopefully, at least 25, yes.
Cool.
So that's good work. So looking forward to celebrating with Miss Musimic and the families. And board members, remember that we're having a board dinner with central administrators after. It's going to be in the art gallery. And so if you've not already RSVP'd, not only for yourself, but if you're bringing a significant other, a +1, please let Michelle know. Michelle is organizing the dinner. We're doing a full dinner this year. Just want to make sure we've got an appropriate count. And I think that's all that I had to follow up, Dr. Ellis.
Okay, well, moving on to 2.02, AEL update with Mrs. Karen Musmick.
Shall I?
Yes, ma'am.
Shall I stand here, Doug?
Go right there.
Oh. Very nice, thank you. Excellent. So good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about the AEL program. And
If you can pull the microphone.
oh, sure.
Thank you.
Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yes.
Okay. My students and staff always say I come in too loud, so I try to. So thank you again for having us. And you said it's this top button. Yeah. And here we go. So the adult education program supports the RSD vision by helping students, of course, build the academic skills that they need to in order to move further in their life. But while we do that, we really work on the learning behaviors and soft skills that are necessary for our students to succeed in the workforce and in post-secondary. We support the Ritenour School District mission by ensuring that all AEL students feel safe to learn and to use their personal experiences to overcome barriers and solve academic challenges. Every student in our program works with AEL staff members to create individual academic and workforce goals and to build pathways to achieve those goals. And we support the equity statement by providing individualized, safe, non-judgmental, and effective instruction in an emotionally supportive environment. The needs of every individual adult student and the needs of their families are heard and used to build pathways to educational and workforce success. So we are very excited about our graduation ceremony. We were so disappointed not to be able to celebrate together last year. So we will be having our ceremony on June 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there. The graduation is set up to adhere to COVID-19 safety protocol. And I wanted to see if anybody had any questions about the protocol. I'm sure Doug will be sharing all of that information, but I'm happy to answer questions about how the ceremony might be a little bit different this year.
Could you speak on that just a bit, Karen?
Absolutely. So our students have a limited number of guests that they can bring with them. We won't have the usual rowdy crowd that we have at the ceremony. And when the students cross the stage, the Board of Education will be on stage with them, but we're encouraging them to walk past the board as the board applauds rather than shaking hands. They will receive their certificate that they will pick up from a table and have their picture taken, but there won't be the same contact that we normally have. This year, we expect to have 25 graduates at the ceremony, but that includes graduates from last year. There were a few from last year that didn't get to celebrate with us, and so they're coming this year. This year, we are hoping to have about 30 graduates total, and we are on track to meet that goal by the end of June. And I want to say that's something that we're very proud of and excited to celebrate, because this is the highest percentage of graduates that we've ever had that I know of in the program. And because the enrollment was so low, it's 22% of our total enrollment, which includes ELL students and students that do not have the HiSET as their goal. And 27% of HiSET students total will graduate. I would say, guesstimate, and it changes year to year, but about 50% of students that come to us for academic goals include earning the HiSET as their goal. So one year, hopefully I will tell you 50% of our students have graduated, and I'll be satisfied, and that will be good. But we're getting there, and we're increasing that percentage year by year. A lot of the reason that our percentage of graduates has gone up is actually because of COVID. We learned so much through the process of having to learn how to meet students' needs virtually. And by doing so, we were able to create a blended learning model that really worked well for our students. And we provided instructional tutoring one-on-one that allowed us to really meet our students' needs in better than we ever have. And I'm really proud of that model. And I'm hoping that as we bring it into a non-COVID environment, that we're going to be doing even better. So in 2020, in 2020, our report card, which I believe has been distributed to you, shows that our academic progression was only 58%. I don't think that number truly reflects the success of our students, because we really had to stop testing in March, and we do a lot of our testing in April and May. We just couldn't pivot quickly enough, to provide online testing for all of our students. 61% was the DESE goal, so we were close, but we didn't quite make it. Employment after exit and median earnings still really, we're above state average, and we're above most regional averages. I think that my staff is doing a fantastic job of getting students ready, not just for the HiSET, but ready to move on to find good work, better work, and move on to post-secondary. So I hope that we continue that into 2021. In 2021, we've already passed the state target for measurable gains, so we know we will meet our targets, and we're going to try to keep exceeding that target. And we will know that data for sure when I get my DESE report card in October of 2021. So another thing that really came up this year, a lot of students came out of the woodwork that needed help with things, tests other than the HiSET. One particular area of concern for many students at Ritenour and also in the community was VAB preparation. And we developed a program to work with those students. And I think it's a very good program. It helps students who achieved maybe a 15 or a 16 on the ASVAB. 31 is the target score in order to get into the National Guard and our Army. And we were able to help those students in a very short period of time by instructing on reading for meaning, of course, the basic math skills, and decoding vocabulary words. So that's an area that we really want to grow in. Another area that we'd like to see more growth and more participation is with Missouri Options Assistance. We absolutely love helping the Missouri Options kids, and the HiSET is our thing. So we really enjoy helping those kids. And the really nice thing about helping those kids is we can take them on as students in our program once they've finished Missouri Options and help them move on to post-secondary, stay with them very closely, help them fill out the FAFSA. Many of these services that they receive in high school, but to stay connected to our district through our program and really move on to the next level in life. And which gets me into our next area, which is post-secondary preparation after high school. So some of the students, some examples of students that we've helped. Stephen, for example, an ELL student from Africa who had challenges, not with the math, but with the vocabulary and the reading sections of the ASVAB. We were able to help him achieve his ASVAB goal in 2 weeks. And he not only will be going into the Army, he's leaving in 4 months, but also he's able to bring his wife, who he hasn't seen in a couple of years, from Africa. It's a pathway to citizenship for him, so it's a wonderful story. James is a student who came to us who already graduated, but he wants to become an electrician. He received special SSD services when he was in high school, and needed to pass an entrance test in order to be accepted into the electricians union. So we were able to, we're still working with him, but he's doing great. So he's going to be in the electricians union very soon. Renya is an example of a Missouri Options student. She was originally an ELL student, and she needed more attention, really a year's worth of individualized instruction in order to help her achieve her high set goal. And we were able to provide daily meetings for her in order to, give her that instruction. And Jordan is another Missouri Options student who, he's an example of a student who got connected to us through Missouri Options, and then stayed with us to work on his post-secondary. He's going into Rankin, and because of his connection with us, Mr. Lindhorst thought to recommend him for the Bob Cole Scholarship, so he'll be applying for that. So just a lot of great things, a lot of great services that he's received through Ritenour.
So board members, that's a foundation scholarship every year. That's a scholarship to Rankin. So we actually didn't have a student originally take advantage of the scholarship. So Ms. Musimic and Mr. Lindhorst worked together to partner Jordan up with this scholarship. So it's a great story.
Yeah, and I love when we can make those connections, because the district has so many resources that we as an individual program and through our affiliation with adult education in the state will never have standalone. But because this district is so great about working with me, we can do a lot more with those students and to help them really, really achieve their dreams. So we have some big goals for 2021, and like most people in education, we want to take what was really great out of our COVID experience and bring that into FY22. Our blended learning model, I think, is working very, very well, and our staff and I will be receiving a lot more instruction, learning how to dig deeper on providing a blended learning model that isn't so much an algorithm. It needs to be individualized and customized to each student in order for us to have success. So we will be working on creating and developing that over the summer, and of course as we go into next year. We want to continue to promote our services within the community. We have learned that our reach can go so much further than the high set, and we have a lot of resources to help people achieve next steps in their lives. And so we'll be working on promoting those services. We want to increase graduation rates. I want every single student who walks into our program to graduate within the year that they walk into our program. And then I will retire. And we want to continue to support and explore new family literacy opportunities. This is something that we've really started to dig into in the past, and kind of relaxed a little bit of that effort over COVID, but we'd really like to, I think there are some great opportunities out there. So we'll be digging into that as we work through next year. And one of the most important things to me as a program, because where I see our greatest value is, of course, high set achievement, English language learners, but to really partner with our district through Missouri Options and through Ritenour High School, for example, with their students who were not successful on the ASVAB the first time around, when we can help them achieve their score of 31 on the ASVAB before they leave high school, then we know that they're going to leave the Ritenour School District on the path of their dreams. That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
We did have a question about, you mentioned greater success with the one-on-one instructional tutoring. Can you share a little bit about how that was done, the format?
Sure. Well, I have the Missouri Options Program to thank for that. They allowed me to assist over the summer, which gave me an opportunity to develop that before we started our adult education school year. So because we couldn't have a classroom full of people, we started meeting with people virtually and decided to be very flexible. Since I had the opportunity to work from home, I was willing to meet people whenever their schedule allowed. And I started working, instead of providing lessons that were separate than their learning platform, I started working with students on their learning platform. And I would add a lot of mini lessons on reading for meaning, decoding words, basic math skills, problem solving skills, and throwing in as much as I could on learning behaviors and soft skills. And so we took our learning platform that was, based on the basic academic skills. And then we taught, learn to teach through that all of the other skills that are necessary, not just to achieve the high set, but to, create pathways, as I said before, but also through that, additionally, the relationships that helped the social emotional wellness of our students and gave them confidence to move forward to the next path. So in simple terms, what we did, we just worked with them on their learning platform, but we provided all of the other things we know and that we try to teach separately and blended that into those lessons. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
So board members, Mr. Lindhorst supervises Ms. Busenek, and so I've asked Mr. Lindhorst to come in and share a couple of words.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Kilbride. I received 2 lengthy emails from a mother of the last student that Karen spoke about, Jordan P. And as I said, they were lengthy. I've tried to collate them and summarize, but these are her words. She said, "We never met, but thanks to Mrs. Karen, my son Jordan graduated in 2020 from Ritenour High School. My son went to the Husky Academy in the Missouri Options Program. My son wanted to drop out and he hated school. When my son started the program, he didn't believe in himself or even believed he could accomplish the program. The program at first was not what he expected and he wasn't being successful. He had failed 2 of his last tests and he was frustrated. He was ready to give up. Then Mrs. Karen came in and my son seemed more interested in the program. He talked highly about the new teacher and how helpful she was. Jordan and her worked together and I'm not sure what she did or said to him, but he passed the 2 tests. She had him call me to give me the great news. I was very happy and I called Husky Academy to speak with Mrs. Karen. She explained to me that my son had a different way of learning and she figured him out by getting to know him and understand him. She assured me he would graduate and be successful. All I know is she motivated him and she believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. I'm impressed at her work ethic and how patient and helpful she is. She not only helped him graduate, but also to continue into a trade school because he didn't want to go to college. She had someone help us fill out the FAFSA application and explain everything the way it worked. My son is going to Rankin Technical College to become a mechanic and already works at Suntrip Ford doing his internship and starts Rankin in the fall. That is thanks to Mrs. Karen. She did more than she needed to. More than anything, she has a gift to help kids succeed. I just wanted to let you know what a wonderful teacher you have. It was an honor to have had her as my son's teacher for believing in him, motivating him, and helping him get a career. I thank her from the bottom of my heart for all she has done. She has a gift that not many have. Mrs. Karen can make a difference in many kids' lives. I just want you to know that you got an amazing teacher who cares and does her job by going above and beyond. Thank you for putting her in our lives. I'm not sure if you know how valuable she is. Thank you so much." And in my reply to Jordan's mother, I told her that we all feel the same way about Karen, and we do know how valuable she is to Ritenour School District.
He was easy, by the way.
For you, that's your gift.
Thank you.
So
So board members, we consider ourselves very lucky to work with Ms. Musimic and her mission to make sure that not only every student graduates her program, but is on a path to career success. So I'd ask that while we're here tonight and recognizing Karen, that we give her a standing ovation for her great work at the system.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We certainly appreciate you, that's for sure.
Thank you for everything.
All right. Moving up next, 2.03, MSIP 6 structures, Dr. Kilbride.
So board members, Dr. Green is here with us tonight. Dr. Green and I are going to co-present the MSIP 6 update. Good, good to see you. So board members, I appreciate Dr. Green for being here with us tonight. He's in the midst right now of closing down his current location. He's got personal graduations this weekend. Maybe when I turn it over to him, he can tell you a little bit about what he's got going on in his personal life. It's very significant right now with some celebrations. He's also working to take care of the students and staff in his current placement. And he's been very giving of his time as he makes the transition here into Ritenour. He spent this past Thursday with us in our May retreat, and he's back with us this evening to co-present with me around MSIP 6. So I'm going to start the presentation off, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Green for some of the middle slides in the presentation. We know that we're guided by our district vision, which from my perspective, the core is to develop leaders recognized for academic excellence. We live our mission, which is to ensure that learning occurs in a supportive environment. And we're also guided by our equity statement to make sure that we're building positive, purposeful relationships with every student and every family so that barriers to learning at high levels are removed and we don't limit teacher expectations for student outcomes. Our purpose this evening is to talk a bit about the Missouri School Improvement Program. I've been in education in Missouri since 1999. So the Missouri School Improvement Program predates me just a bit. There's been no greater level of upheaval in MSIP as what there has been in these last 3 years. You can kind of track some of the upheaval in MSIP program to the level of political unrest in the state of Missouri, which started with Governor Greitens. So the Missouri School Improvement Program is based around a 5-year improvement cycle. MSIP 1 was established in 1991 and pretty much remained on track in that 5-year cycle. You can see with MSIP 2, 3, and 4, and then MSIP 5 was the transition to fully supported based on student performance data. In the midst of that, Common Core, which was a move towards a national curriculum, was adopted in between MSIP 4 and MSIP 5. That delayed the adoption of MSIP 5 by 1 year. And then there was the pushback to Common Core, if we remember our education history. Pushback to Common Core, it was an effort to nationalize education, took out local decision-making, which we know is core to the focus of the work that we do. And so in response to the pushback to Common Core, Missouri did what a lot of states did, which is they convened teams of teachers and educators from across the state to rewrite the Missouri learning standards so that there was local control at play. And what was evident after Missouri educators rewrote the Missouri learning standards, the level of correlation between Common Core and the redrawn learning standards in every state across the country is somewhere north of 85% correlation. That's true of Missouri as well. So in 2016, these new Missouri learning standards were adopted to sever the link with Common Core, although a high correlation in the Missouri learning standards to what the Common Core was. And then based on these new Missouri learning standards that were drawn up by educators across the state, there was a new set of assessments that were tied to the learning standards. Those came online over the course of the last 3 years, as you can see. And then some of the political unrest created some upheaval. So we were on track, and I was a part of a number of meetings around MSIP 6, 2016, 2017. MSIP 6 was on track to be implemented January of 2018. One of the actions that Governor Greitens took was to stack the board at the State Department with the express purpose of removing the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Margie Van Dieven. I was at the state board meeting when Dr. Van Dieven was terminated. It was a meeting in December of that year, and observed the board convene into closed session in the middle of the meeting for a period of about an hour. When the board reconvened and opened, they took the vote and Dr. Van Dieven was terminated. That effectively sidelined MSIP 6. So got one more slide here, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Green. So what happened when the progress around MSIP 6 was stalled is DESE stood up a variety of fixes, is because we were in between MSIP 5 and MSIP 6. The next version of the accreditation system was on track to be stood up in 2021, which is right now, but the progress has been slower than what is expected. The metrics for MSIP 6, a number of the indicators are not yet published. And one of the key debates that was out there around MSIP 6 was the question around equity standards. The first version of MSIP 6 had a series of equity standards that were then removed based on action of the State Board of Education, only to be reinstituted in a later period of time after some public outcry. So over the course of the last couple of years, districts across the state have been navigating between the two different versions, MSIP 5 and MSIP 6, in our plan.
Thank you, and good evening. So when we look at MSIP 6, MSIP 6 is an opportunity for schools as well as districts to focus on educational practices that are already in place in most instances, but to focus on them in a way because those practices have been shown to be effective and critical to the success of all educators as well as students. I want to point out that some of the standards are in fact quantitative and some of them are qualitative. The metrics have not been developed and they're not available at this point. However, through some of the literature that I've had the opportunity to look at over the last few years in this cycle, they're still looking at a district classification or designation of unaccredited, provisionally accredited, accredited, and then accredited with distinction. So one of the standards that will be in MSIP 6 or that is in MSIP 6 is leadership. And under leadership, there's a lot of focus around board indicators. So we have some of them listed on the screen. Leadership standard number 1 deals with school board leadership. Does the board or superintendent engage in professional learning? Leadership standard number 2 deals with ethics. The board conducts business in compliance with the Missouri Open Meeting and Records Act. We're looking at MSIP leadership standard number 3, which deals with continuous school improvement. Is there a system in place for monitoring the implementation of the outcomes of the CSIP? Leadership standard 7, personnel and program evaluation. Is there a PD plan or other plans as required by statutes? And then there's leadership standard 8 that deals with communication. Is there a two-way or reliable communication that exists between all stakeholders? Moving on to effective teaching and learning. Some of the indicators that we pulled out of this standard, and it deals with focusing on the whole child, is teaching and learning standard or indicator number 1, success and ready students. Example would be, is there an ICAP in place for students in 8th grade? Looking at attendance, on-track performance, what does that look like? Again, things that are already in place that we're doing, but putting more structural system in place to ensure that those things are being monitored at the district as well as the school level. Teaching and learning standard number 2, high quality early learning, looking at parents and teachers programming, preschool options. And then there's 3, my favorite, high quality career education, where you're looking at CTSOs or career and technical student organizations, things such as HOSA, DECA, FBLA, are those things in place? Is there a heightened awareness around career awareness for our students? And number 7, multi-tiered system of support, looking at how we monitor supports or community partner collaborations to provide resources and supports for our students. And then number 8, professional learning. Is there scheduled job embedded ongoing professional development embedded within the school district? We move on to culture, collaboration of climate and culture. Again, there are things that are already in place. CC1, climate and culture, deals with more so survey data, but also looking at a safe, orderly, and caring environment. Or there are things in place such as trauma-informed, code of conduct. CC3 deals with culture of high academic and behavioral expectation. Is there a systemic process for establishing and maintaining a positive learning environment? Again, some of these items will be garnered through survey data that will be put out. And then there's parent-guardian involvement, incorporating some of those formal strategies that include our parents and guardians in the educational process. Database decision-making is another standard that we will be focusing on under MSIP6, and that's a focus on feedback. So DB1 deals with data submission or reports submitted timely and in an accurate manner. And the next one would be continuous and innovative improvement. So when you look at that, continuous and innovative improvement, is the reflection data collection analysis, or is there planning and feedback or evaluation as it relates to the data that is being submitted? And then last but not least on this slide, culture and climate data. Are student voices heard? What is the culture and climate data that we have for the district, and is that reported to all stakeholders? I touched on some of the planks that are under the standards as well as the indicators that is in a more comprehensive document. Pulled a few of them out just to give you an idea of what the state will be looking at under MSIP6. Again, from my vantage point and looking at a number of school districts, those things are already in place, but looking at a more concise way of making sure that we're being intentional about monitoring as well as putting systems and structures in place to ensure that it's systemic across the district.
Thank you, Dr. Green.
Yes, sir.
And so board members, as I look at MSIP6, having really been around since MSIP3, MSIP6 is going to be a move back towards site visits. MSIP5 was totally based on student performance data. MSIP6 is going to be a combination of student performance data, although somewhat of a lesser reliance on that. There are still standards in MSIP6 that site review teams will be coming and descending on the district to have a series of checks and balances. And having been through site reviews as a part of MSIP4 and MSIP3, I believe, here in the district, it's a great chance to stand and deliver and talk about the processes, as well as be transparent about the opportunities that exist in the district as well. I'm only going to speak on 2 of the standards. I mentioned the controversial issue of the equity standards in the state accreditation framework. The equity standards were there, then they were removed, there was public outcry, and then they were put back into the system. I pulled 4 examples of standards that fall under equity and access. The system administers assessments required by MAP to measure achievement and demonstrate improvement over time. So that's not only a measure of state level assessments, but it's also going to be a measure of ongoing interim common formative assessments like Evaluate and IXL. Because the goal of state assessments is not to use state standardized assessment data in instructional planning, because the purpose of that's just one snapshot in time. Students take Evaluate, take IXL, take WIDA over the course of the year. Well, I guess WIDA is one period in the year as well. But take Evaluate and IXL throughout the course of the year, and that's what we make instructional decisions around. So this standard would be that site review team taking a look at our ongoing formative structure that we have stood up in the district. System ensures that all students successfully complete high school, which is one of our key goals in the district. We're preparing all students for post-secondary success, whether that be a focus on enrollment in college, employment in the world of work, or enlistment in the military. And then the system intentionally focuses on outcomes and allocation of resources to ensure that every student, which has been our mantra since 2002, every student, every day, more recently, really the basis of our equity statement, making sure that we are allocating resources so every student receives what they need. Providing resources to ensure that every student is purposely engaged, and provided rigorous instruction, supports, and relevant experiences. That metric would be identified through a site review. So what's next? And so right now, there's a high level of correlation between MSIP-5 and MSIP-6. And the reason that Dr. Green is presenting with me is we're building out Dr. Green's ZCI, his areas of responsibility, because he is to be focused at the secondary level. And so much of accreditation structures are always based around the secondary level. Dr. Green is going to be on the front line around MSIP-6 monitoring, be done on a weekly basis with weekly check-ins with Dr. Stewart and I around MSIP-6 metrics. I think this is a perfect responsibility for Dr. Green, given his most recent job responsibilities and his ability to make data-driven decisions in his current role. We're organizing a July retreat. We've actually got the dates for the next 4 years of our July retreats. This year, it's going to be July 27 to 29. It's always the very last week of July. The only thing that would change that is if our legislature and our State Board of Education took action like they did 2 years ago to impact the start date of the school year. You know, we know we have to be responsive to the state, and we'll do that. But we just need to make sure that people are aware of our structures and our plan moving forward. So we have July 27 to 29, a retreat with all of our leaders. It's a follow-up to the retreat that we had last Thursday, where we'll be organizing presentations around MSIP-6 standards and indicators so that building leaders would be able to do some crosswalks between current building plans and goals under MSIP-5 to what impact MSIP-6 standards will have on their planning. So not only training up teachers and administrators and staff around MSIP-6, we'll be working to organize some community learning sessions on the topic of MSIP-6 because we've got a couple of years before we make the full transition to MSIP-6. This has been part of the confusion around MSIP-6 because it's not to be fully implemented until the 22-23 school year. So we're still in the midst of that transition in between 5 and 6. One of the interesting, so having been in this job for a while and getting to know the people and somehow, to some extent, the way that Jefferson City functions, there's always change going on as there is in any organization. The 2 assistant commissioners that are on the front line around the transition to MSIP-6, one is retiring June 30th and another one is moving into a new position. So I do believe that the transition to MSIP-6, there is going to be a little bit of an implementation gap with getting the new assistant commissioner that's going to be over MSIP-6 up to speed with some of the progress that's been made to this point. But, board members, what we'll commit to you is to be focused on MSIP 6 every day in our work. We'll make sure that you get up to speed around standards and indicators, and look forward to having a series of work sessions around this topic as soon as metrics are available, because we know the expectation of being a fully accredited district. We are and we will remain a fully accredited school district. That's the basis of why we exist and our commitment to the community. As soon as those indicators and metrics are out there, we'll present to you along with Dr. Green and make sure that you understand what we're accountable for. Can answer any questions you might have.
I was wondering, do they accommodate anything for virtual learning within the new M6?
Not that I'm aware of. Dr. Green, are you aware of any of that? No. No. And in fact, board members, so virtual learning, I shared with you a while back that there was a bill in front of the legislature that would outlaw virtual learning. So that didn't go anywhere. But what did happen is that we came to you, Dr. Stewart came to you with an AMI-X plan. So we had an AMI plan approved. That allows us to shift on inclement weather days into full virtual days instead of having a traditional inclement weather day. So that allows for 36 hours of shift to virtual, which is what we intend to do moving forward now that every child has access to a device. AMI-X, that allowed us to have a hybrid schedule. DESE is no longer allowing AMI-X plans, so that means the hybrid schedule that we had the majority of this year, in fact, in a form we had it all year, is no longer possible in the state of Missouri. So it's either full-time in person or a virtual option.
Does MSIP 6 talk about or look at graduation rates and attendance?
Yes, it looks at the graduation rate as well as attendance.
How much is that weighted?
We don't have the weight for MSIP 6 as of yet, so we're still waiting on the state to put those metrics out and how it will be weighted.
So if they don't allow AM6, or say AM-X plans, and we have people who are virtual 100%, and we have people who are in person, when the weather's bad and people in person will get their schedule moved.
Yeah, so eliminating AMI-X is 5 days full in person or full virtual. We can have no combination of in-person and virtual. That's what's been eliminated. The AMI plan, which will be renewed, allows us 36 hours of when the decision is made to call an inclement weather day. The students that are fully virtual, they just remain fully virtual. It's just business as usual for them. The students who are in person 5 days shift to fully virtual for that day, and we get credit for it through the state.
So we can have it for how many, 36 hours?
Yeah, 36 hours. And that coincides with the shift away from the number of days. In the past, it had been 174 days. Now it's 1,044 hours, I believe. So really what it equates to, we consider it 6 instructional days. It's 36 hours.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for Dr. Green?
Are we all good? Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank
thanks,
you.
Dr. Green.
Great report.
Okay, sounds good.
Moving on to 2.0. Question?
You had some personal
Okay.
stuff to share with us.
Yeah.
Well, he said he was.
Yeah, I talked about Dr. Green's busy weekend coming up.
Yes.
Yeah, so my busy weekend and I guess the next couple of weeks. So Saturday, my daughter will be graduating from high school. She finished her high school plan in 3 years. So not only will I be supervising graduation for the district that I'm coming from, she'll be graduating as well. So I'll try to figure out how to do double duty and make sure graduation is taken care of.
Family first.
Absolutely. So I've already assigned someone to help out during that transition, but it's hard to sit still and you're in charge of making sure everything flows smoothly. But we'll be at the Powerplex as well that Saturday, and we'll have all 3 graduations Saturday, and I'll see you all Sunday at Ritenour's graduation.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to 2.04, child nutrition bid recommendations with Ms. Dean Hill.
Hello, good evening. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Good evening. I am here to do the bid recommendation plus the meal price and then the CEP SSO, which is the seamless summer option recommendation as well. Which one do I do? Okay. Did I hit the right clicker instead?
I don't know why.
I don't know.
Hold on.
Here we go. I hit the right button.
There you go.
Got it. Sorry about that. So the Ritenour vision for us is that we will be in partnership with parents and community. We'll develop leaders recognized for academic excellence and produce graduates who will become productive citizens and lead lives of personal integrity and fulfillment. Our mission, of course, is to always ensure learning occurs in a supportive environment that enables every student to think critically and solve problems and develop the knowledge and skills necessary. Our equity statement is that we will always prioritize our prioritize our interaction with every parent, student, and guest and colleague. So I'm here tonight because the child nutrition bids were sent out to all the vendors, and then they came back in certain items. So we do our dry items, frozen items, fresh produce, milk, bread, and then we did a pizza bid as well. So our vendor list is Cole Wholesale, US Foods, Jackson Supply, Prairie Farms, Beanbo Bakeries, Alpha Baking Company, and then it's called What Chefs Want, and it's called Creative Gardens, but it's formerly Sun Farm Produce that we used a couple years ago. Pizza Hut, Domino's, and then Old Time Produce and Vaccaro Produce as well.
Slides aren't moving.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, we can follow, but people.
Yeah, I gotcha. Sorry about that, guys. So our bid process, we select items to bid. When we give the vendors our specifications, we give them the items like the bread, milk, produce, the frozen foods, dry foods, fresh produce, and the pizza bids. We then figure out our usage and estimates that we use for our projected and what we've done in the past. We decide our delivery locations, days, times, and then we send them out electronically to all the vendors. All of our frozen foods and dry foods bids were sent to vendors. We had 211 dry food items and then 213 frozen food items. And then this did not include the produce, milk, and bread. So our frozen and dry food selection, the dry foods came in at Cole at $318,604. Our frozen foods came in at $975,370, which was a total of $1,293,974. US foods came in at $16,818 for dry foods, and then frozen was $42,587. So that's a total for $59,405. Our fresh produce selection, we had Vaccaro, Jackson Produce, Kohl's, Creek Creation, Gardens, and then Old Time Produce. We select them by the bottom line, and everything is analyzed by line for every product. Milk and juice selections, they were awarded by the vendor or the bottom line, and it was Prairie Farms, Vaccaro, and Cole Wholesale. And then bread food selections are the same. They're awarded by the bottom line, and it was Alpha Baking, Jackson Produce, and Cole Wholesale. The pizza bid this year was Pizza Hut and Domino's. It's not going. Like, oh, no, sorry. It was Pizza Hut and Domino's. So my bid recommendations would be to use Cole and US Food for all of our frozen and dry, Vaccaro for fresh produce, Prairie Farms for milk and juice, and then Alpha Bakings for our fresh breads, and then Pizza Hut for our special pizza days. So this is a bid comparison, and I added, we used to just do 2 years, but I did 3 years because last year was the pandemic and it's not. So, this past year was, we elected to use all the net off invoice options on all of our commodities. This year, instead of using a fee for service option, and that was because for most of the commodities, so we will not have to pay the extra expense for freezer storage or transportation for them to come to us so the fee for service foods used in the commodities in the past have not been in bid comparisons before. So when I say that, that's the food that we paid the processing fee. And so that was up there in price as well. So that's not in there. That's not in the 2019-2020 bid process. So that's the difference too. Last year, due to the pandemic, we were unable to use the pizza vendors, but we plan to use them this year since we're going to be able to be in school 5 days a week. Overall, Cole and US Foods have experienced an increase in food supply for their manufacturers and suppliers. So it's supply and demand that are in place. And this is why there is an increase in all of our bid pricing lately. But the good thing is we do have a lot from Cole that did the entitlement dollars through the USDA. So we get money off per case of everything that we do. Any questions on bid recommendations?
Dina, there was a question that came up from a board member about gluten-free and supporting students who, abide by a gluten-free diet. How do we support?
So when we have any type of allergy at all, whether it's gluten-free, lactose intolerant, anything like that, we have a doctor's statement. And if that doctor's statement shows that they have a diagnosis, then we get like gluten-free buns in, we get corn dogs in, gluten-free pancakes, waffles. We have a list of just a lot of different items that we got from Cole, and then we just bring that in. And then we do like grilled nuggets, grilled chicken, if it's chicken nuggets or whatever. So we end up doing something like that to replace so the child can eat. And then we do almond milk even for lactose-free people, so. Yep.
I appreciate the bid total comparison. Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
No, it's very important. Thank you so much.
I hope it helps. It helps me.
So if it's okay, we can move to 2.05, which is the meal price
and CP/SSO recommendation.
Yep. Okay. So we analyzed 4 components to determine the recommendation for the 21-22 school year. Community eligibility provision, which is CEP, the seamless summer option program, which is the SSO. Then we look at the current meal cost, and then we look at the current meal price. So the current total meal cost that we have for breakfast right now is $2 for breakfast, and then $3.45 for lunch. This includes labor, food, general supplies, and then that's how we know how to, it helps us determine our adult meal pricing. Adult meal prices right now, they pay $2 for breakfast and $3.50 for lunch. Currently, the meal prices that are $2, they're $2 for breakfast and $3.50 for lunch. So the,
Yeah, I accidentally went backwards.
oh, it did?
Yeah. Oh,
No.
no, other way.
There you go.
There you go.
No, back one.
Too far.
You want me to go back one?
There you go.
Yeah, okay, so our current breakfast meal prices are $2 and then lunch is $3.50. What am I saying for me? Okay, CEP and SSO options for the 21-22 school year. When we did the 2021 school year, we were able to elect the seamless summer option program, which gives us 100% full reimbursement for our breakfast and our lunch. Right now, if we were to pick CEP, we only get 74.48% of our meals at full price reimbursement, and then 25.52% at like the reduced price lunch meal from the state. So with SSO, the district was paid more at 100% for all of our meals last year, and I am hoping that we can do that again for the next school year.
So Dina, we started with the seamless summer option during the pandemic, is that correct? That's what allowed
Yep.
us to continue providing meals?
Yes, that's what helped us. SSO will also give us no-cost meals for all of our Ritenour students. It's still the same, it operates the same as CEP. There's no meal benefit applications or anything like that. We have the relief of possible food insecurities and negative meal refund balances and anxiety of our families, and then they can focus on academics.
So why are the costs larger than what we're saying we're charging? I don't understand that.
What do you mean? Oh, the meal cost, the raw meal cost is $3.45. Is that what you're asking me? What you asked me?
Well, on the slide that you just had, it said breakfast is $2.26 and lunch is $3.60, but on the previous slide, it was $2 and $3.50.
Okay, so the $2, that's what we currently have now. That's the current adult meal cost. That's what the adults pay for breakfast and lunch. Our reimbursement for students, we get $2.26. So it's been lower than what we currently get paid from the state, since we didn't have a meal increase 2 years, 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
From the state.
Mhm.
And so the adult meal cost, that's if a staff member chooses to purchase a meal, is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Does that happen pretty regularly?
At some elementary schools it does, but not all schools. Not for breakfast, at least. Lunch, we have a little more meal purchases, but not breakfast. You got a question? So recommendations for the 21-22 school year, I'm hoping that we can do, including School for Early Childhood, to participate in the seamless summer option. I'd like to increase our meal price, our current meal price for the adults. The adult meal price right now is $2, and I'd like to make it $2.35. And then our adult meal price is $3.50. That's what we charge them, to $3.75.
And these price increases would not impact students or families, it would only impact staff members that
Staff
choose to
members,
purchase.
just for adult meals. And that's all. Any questions?
So I do have a question.
Sure.
I've heard from several adults, that they pay these prices and they get kind of the same portion, and they feel like they're not getting enough food.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, but I've been in the schools and I've seen our people give the adults some of their portions, and they give them like 2 cheeseburgers sometimes, and they've given them like an extra helping of vegetables and stuff. So I think it only occurs in some schools, but I'm not sure which one. But we are looking at, that's why I want to increase the meal price for adults, because we're looking at a little larger portion.
Okay.
So that I don't have to catch them doing something that they're not supposed to be doing. So.
Do they have to ask for more, like if a teacher's going through the line, do they say, hey, can I please have some more?
And if they want more, we'll give them more. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes they ask for more and sometimes they're good, you know, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the purpose of the increase in the adult price is because you are going to implement larger portions for adults?
Mm-hmm. We're looking at implementing larger portions for adults. You guys have any more questions?
The seamless summer option, do we have an idea of how long that's going to be available? Because that's a relatively new option, right?
It just got extended through September of 2022.
Okay.
So,
And so is it connected to COVID relief?
Mhm.
Is that, and so the likelihood that we would be with seamless summer option for years, there's not a strong likelihood that that happens.
well, not at this point, but they're talking about it. But at this point, it's due to the pandemic. Throughout the
Is it soon to when?
September 2022.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's move to 2.06, the construction update with Michael Smith.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so we know that well-maintained facilities help us achieve the district's mission and vision. And as far as the equity statement, we know that facilities should provide the best physical environment for learning to occur. And all district schools should provide consistent and equitable learning environments. I just have a couple of updates on some things that are going on in the district right now. And one project that we had been putting together was repair for concrete throughout the district. It's needed at several schools, specifically Iveland, Kratz, Ritenour Middle, and the high school. Those were the high priority concrete repairs. There's some safety concerns, and we also want to prevent damage into the future by getting some repairs done. There were also some repairs at Hake and Booter that we were considering as well. Iveland, you can see that we did put out an RFP. The base bid was to patch and repair curbs and sidewalks. And to patch and repair concrete parking areas. You can see some of the damage that's going on and starting at Iveland. Kratz, there's obviously some damage to some sidewalks that is a necessity to repair. And then, you know, the other picture shows an area that we can prevent some further damage. We had a base to do some repairs in 3 locations. And an alternate to repair in 5 additional locations. Ritenour Middle, we're having some cracks on sidewalks that we'd like to get repaired. Here at the high school, you can see that you know, there's some curb repair that has to be done, and you can see also that the seams in the sidewalks and seams in the driveways are starting to show some wear. This is the ramp, the ADA ramp that leads from the upper drive to the lower drive. There's some repairs that we're going to need to happen there. in order to prevent further damage. And then also at Booter and Hake, there's some sidewalk repairs that need to take place there, some curb repairs. And then you can see there's some stairs that lead down to the Booter playground, and then also at Hake that lead down to the lower fields out back. Some washing out that we need to repair. So we did send this out for bid. Unfortunately, only one contractor showed up to bid day and bid on the project. We had 3 interested bidders. One chose not to bid. They said that they did not want to do patching. They wanted to do full tear outs and repairs, and they chose not to bid. Another just did not show up. And then Ritenour was the contractor that did show up for bid day. Because we want to ensure competitive bid pricing, it's very difficult to recommend based on one bid from one contractor. And so we're not going to recommend this repair to start right now. We're going to send the RFP back out again in January. And that way, hopefully get a further head start on getting additional bidders for the work that has to be done. In some of those pictures, you guys saw some, areas that need immediate repair. And so my crews will be working to repair as much of the immediate repairs to get as we can right now, because we don't want to wait the entire summer without doing some of those repairs. Unfortunately, we won't be able to complete all of the repairs that we believe need to be done.
So a lot of those squares and everything, we're not going to tear all that up and we do it, we're going to patch those?
Yeah, in a lot of areas, we were considering patching instead of complete replacement. It's the difference between, how long do you want it to last versus the cost of the immediate cost of that work to be done. So it's the balance of that.
So we're gonna wait till January. I don't understand that.
To send it out again?
Yeah.
We could send it out earlier. The thing is that right now, the main reason we did not get interest in the project is all of the contractors have so much work to do right now, especially in school districts. And so, it's like, because of the influx of money, they're just out there and they're spread thin. So we do want to get it out for next year, but we also don't want to get it out too early. And so in talking with our architect, we believe January will give us enough time to get interest.
Some of the assumptions are that it's going to take 6 months for this bubble in work to start to subside a little bit. In putting a package on the street in the middle of winter, versus, coming into the summer, we think that prices will start to go back down. Because the bids that came back in, I think, were about 3 times what we're anticipating.
I talked to some contractors this past week that need some work to be done. And they flat out told me, we might be able to come see your work, give you a bid in a week or 2. And we're scheduling things for September and October.
Yeah. And so board members, if you remember last month too, we had a similar experience with the tuck pointing projects where, we had, Mr. Smith presented 2 bids. One that, we just was very low and we just didn't understand, but then it was going to be a 6 months, planning 6 months out before we'd be able to start.
Mike, with a lot of that, I think we should really, since we go ahead and put the bids out again and everything, I think we should really look at replacing a lot of that concrete, not just patching it. Because a patch is just that, a patch, it's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
And with the amount of traffic that we have on it, with the, I guess, the appearance of it and everything, I think we need to patching is not incorrect. I think we just need to replace and make it more permanent.
Okay.
So that's a conversation we can take up with the architects, Brad. We can share that feedback with the architects. And
Yeah,
one of
we're
Mr.
trying to
Smith's.
get as much bang for our buck and everything like that, but, you know, it's not like we're going away in 5 years or 3 years. These buildings and this concrete's gonna be there for a long time. And I hate for us to have to go back in 3 to 5 years and have to patch or something like that. If the concrete's deteriorating, a lot of that is, we need to do a more permanent solution, dig deep into that, tear it out, do it right.
I think the structure that we could use to get at that, we have a construction update every month for the board. We could take this conversation to the architects and update the board at a future construction update meeting on the cost.
So right now, any work that you try to do, I call 5 different contractors. And one lady is like, you know, we would really love your business. And I'll schedule you out for September and maybe October, but that's about the best we can do. So, you know, if we gotta wait during that concrete's not gonna get that much worse in 6, 7 months. I mean, it looks terrible as it is, and there's a lot of it that looks bad. You haven't even shown some of it, but
You're right.
those are the highlights. You go around looking at our school district, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And I think if we can get a company like Lochner or something to bid on that and replace the concrete pads and stuff and the curving, I think we'd be just years ahead.
Yeah, I think Mr. Smith was also advocating for the use of his team because there are some safety issues that are out there. So we look forward to coming back to you in a coming month to give you an update on those safety issues that have been patched by the team here at district.
Yeah, and to reinforce that idea, there's a lot of supply and demand right now with bids that have started what we had even for our roof. A lot of the supply is 3 times the amount because so many people are doing work currently. And in all honesty, a lot of the concrete work is done this time of year. And so when you're looking at something like November, December, much less of that is getting poured. So there should be enough product to be able to have that concrete available, and hopefully that price can come down because it is astronomically high right now, even with asphalt.
Right. Any other questions about concrete? All right. So as you know, last month, Julie and I presented on adding an all-gender restroom here at the high school. We discussed that, restroom access affects everyone, whether it's for medical needs, caretakers, transgender people, children, anyone who has needs around privacy for restrooms, there is a need for an all-gender restroom. Discussed some data behind that need and recognized that the lack of safe restroom access has been linked to medical problems and, further states the need for adding this all-gender restroom here at the high school. One thing that, was an obvious concern for me, being a former administrator in a building, was the need for privacy. And so, an all-gender restroom would have added privacy. It would have no gap doors, low gaps at the bottom. You wouldn't be able to see feet because you also want to make sure people are safe. But there would be small gaps at the bottom, small gaps at the top to provide for that privacy, so there'd be no peeking through gaps. And we would also, make sure that we were providing for easier supervision of the restroom as well by some specific work that we would do in order within that restroom to open it up so it can be supervised easier by the adults. So the updates would include those privacy partitions that I showed you the picture of. It would be redoing the tile floor. That would be removing and replacing the fixtures in order to replace the tile that's in there. It would require some adjustments of the ceiling. And that is really for the gap at the top, so that there's not a large gap at the top between the partition. Lighting, finishes, and then we also put out to bid alternates. Our base was to leave the walls as they are and the color that they are, which, you know, in the restrooms, those older restrooms, it's not attractive. We did put alternates out to either paint that glazed wall with an epoxy paint or to completely retile the entire restroom. Bids came back and Calicac came back with the low bid of $43,151. The alternate one, which was painting the epoxy, was $2,326. And then the new to completely retile, that was quite a bit higher, and that's not something that I would recommend at this time. That's just further beyond where we were wanting to spend at this point.
And Mr. Smith,
yes,
the color of the wall tile too, it's pink tile, is that correct?
Right now it's pink and yellow, brown. It's very, very unattractive, you know. So that's the floor tile is pink, the wall tile is yellow, and it just does not. It's not appealing, you know. So.
And when we think about what we're after in terms of having an inclusive space, having a pink tile bathroom also is not something that we're after. We want it to be a neutral space.
What color scheme would we be looking at?
So we're looking at more of a neutral gray for the floor tile. Wall tile would be something to accent that floor.
That would look good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. And so therefore, you know, next week I'll be recommending to accept the base bid and alternate one for a total of $45,477 for the construction of the all-gender restroom here at the high school.
Have we done any work with this company?
We have not done work with this company. However, our architect has heard of them and hasn't heard anything bad about them. We do know that they've done work in surrounding districts, and our architect is working on vetting them right now. This is a pretty small project, pretty hard to mess up, but we still want to get some information about the company.
Oh, any project can be messed up. Just give someone a chance.
That's true. Are there any?
It's a good project.
Yeah, I agree with you, Brad. Are there any other questions about the all-gender restroom here at the high school?
No, it's the same question. I just want to have information about the company.
Yeah. Yeah. The bid had just come in. I think this bid was Tuesday, and so it's just a timing issue. But I'll have that information for you, Ruth. I'd like to get it to you before next Thursday, so I'll let you know as soon as I find out.
Have we done any business with the other two companies?
ICS has done a lot of work in the district. Integra is not somebody we've heard of.
Okay.
So I think Mr. Lindhorst has experience with Calicac in his prior district.
Correct. But that was something I didn't know, so we always want to vet them.
Right.
Because, you know, somebody can take over a company also.
Absolutely.
So I'll get back to everybody I'll get back to Dr. Kilbride on that information, and he'll let you know. All right, and I want to talk about the press box here at the high school. It is desperately in need of some repairs. Repairs have been deferred for a long time. That building is decades and decades old and has had minimal upgrades over that time and minimal repairs over that time. And it's way past due on getting some work done. And if you've been out in front, you could actually kind of see the rock that limestone's starting to shale off, you know, so it's important that we get some work done on this building because it's beautiful. All right, so my team is going to do some work in the press box. We will replace toilet seats and replace the tile. There's some exterior work that we can do, and also painting and doing some repairs in the upstairs where the announcers sit. Those are repairs that my team would be able to handle. But there are some more significant repairs that we need some help with.
What's the picture on the top right?
Top right is the bottom of a door that leads up to the upper area. That is you can see trim that has actually just rotted away. It's the bottom of wooden trim work.
So the door opens up above that 2x4?
Yeah, that's the bottom of a door, and then there's a stair going up inside of that door.
Is that a 2x4 or a concrete step?
That is a concrete step.
Well, it looked like 2x4.
Yeah.
At first when I looked at it, but then I was like, no, that's a step.
Okay.
But it does look like.
And you can see, that tile is really something we can work on that too. So ceilings, you can see how badly the ceilings need to be completely replaced. We suspect that joists underneath those ceilings are also going to need some repair. The walls have to be painted. But in order for that, they'll have to be scraped and then use an epoxy paint so it adheres. The most significant work is going to be installing flashing, repairing trim, and then tuck pointing. We know how expensive that type of work can be. Because that building, I don't think it's ever been tuck pointed or sealed or anything. You can actually stand on the inside of the brick and feel the dampness coming from the outside. So it's going to take some significant work. And then, of course, repairing and painting the front face of that entrance where everybody enters the field. Bids will be due on the 9th, and then that's the day before next week's meeting. I know it's not going to be much time, but I will update Dr. Kilbride as soon as I get those prices in.
So, Mr. Smith, the board's also aware that in the men's restroom, there was a fire.
That's correct. Yeah, there was a fire in the restroom, and it caused, we estimate, $30,000 to $35,000 worth of damage. It's a very, very sad thing that happened. However, that repair is going to be covered by insurance. So then we were actually able to remove from the bid all of the work that would have needed to be done in that men's restroom. So that will be taken off. That will not be within that bid next week. But in my opinion, I'd rather pay the money and that event not have happened.
So board members, law enforcement is following through on that investigation. They have a couple of leads, but no action yet.
But that will now be an insurance repair. And then we will be looking to take care of the rest in order to get the building up to where we need it to be. My team's going to start repairs soon. And then, like I said, provided everything works out, then I'll be making a recommendation next week.
What about that room that's used for fundraising and everything like things, all games?
Yeah, so that actually had a little bit of damage from that fire as well. It was mostly soot, so it's just going to have, they're going to pull everything out and clean in that room.
Is there any updates or upgrades or anything that needs to be done in there?
No. At this point, nothing needs to be upgraded. It just needs to be repaired and fixed and get it to the point where, those restrooms are embarrassing.
And so board members, the thinking was black and orange is going to be on the 28th of August, that we, pending your approval, this would be all complete before black and orange on the 28th.
And lastly, I want to update you about CRATs and classroom needs that we have at CRATs. Because of enrollment, we've been converting closets, and last year we converted the stage into a learning space, and we're running out of space. And so because of the space that the school needs in order to effectively teach kids next year, our solutions for that are to add a modular classroom, which would actually add 2 full-size classroom spaces, and also do some renovation in the library. They have a very large library. Sectioning a portion of that off, it is large enough to add another full-size classroom and still have a library that would suit the needs of the school. So we are looking to install a Will Scott modular classroom called a lot of different vendors. Will Scott is actually handled under state contract, so that is helpful as well. Eliminates the need for bidding. The modular classroom, like I said, will have 2 full-size classrooms. It will include a ramp, an ADA ramp, skirting around the base, window and door security. I think that just means locks, but they said that's what it includes. And then it would also include the tie downs. And so delivery and installation of that will be $14,176. And our yearly rental of the classroom would be $27,463.
So board members, this is a part of conversations that we need to start heading into the fall around boundaries, school district boundaries. So the data at CRATS is held pretty consistent, 540, 550. We're on track for 604 this year, and we're on track for 640 in the next 4 years. Schools on the southern side of the district, Booter is on track for 399. So the time to look at redrawing our boundaries is now. That's a big process with a lot of engagement, because we know that people are very closely identified with their elementary school. So looking forward to bringing a plan to you on or about August for what that engagement would look like for a boundary process for next year.
For next year,
so it would be a year-long process of engagement. And then once we land at the recommendations and pending board approval, then we would talk through the timeline of how those would be phased in. Could be a 1-year phase-in, could be a 4-year phase-in. As a part of this conversation also, we've got information sessions planned with the families that live in the Lintown apartment complex. There are 36 students that attend Kratz Elementary that live in the Lintown complex. It's right on the boundary of Kratz and Booter. There'd be an option for families that do live in Lintown to request an interdistrict transfer to Booter. And that may reduce some of the overcrowding at Kratz, but we don't believe it to be in our best interest now to arbitrarily mandate that. This would be a voluntary process people would go through.
They'll start this year, you're saying?
So the information sessions are in the next 2 years. That would start in August.
Okay.
We'll start next year this process, and we would expect to land on some recommendations likely February or March.
I never got to say you're not going to offer the option this year to go to Booter, or you're saying it's going to be a whole other year?
Oh, so the Lintown complex, the 36 students, we've got an information session next week and the week following.
Okay.
That option is for August of this
Okay.
year. Redrawing the boundaries of the whole district would be the year following.
Thank you.
Any questions about my lengthy update?
So board members around Kratz also, I don't normally make administrative approvals, but as it relates to this project, so that this project would be on track for August, I did make the administrative approval to move on these modulars. The thinking being, even if we waited to this meeting, put us dangerously close to not having it complete for August 25th with kids.
There's you.
Thank you.
They were the only company that had trailers available also.
That's true.
Wow.
That's true.
They were the only company that had trailers.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving to 2.07, the budget proposal. Mr. Dwight Lenhorst.
Okay. Hello again. Pleased to go over the proposed budget with you tonight. Yes, sir. So again, we cannot meet our vision or our mission without adequate resources. And when it comes to equity for the business office and finance, it means allocating resources based on student need instead of just equally allocating them. So when you get the budget document, you'll see it has these four sections. This is in line with the meritorious budget award process run by the Association of School Business Officials. And they are all required and have to have certain information in each of those sections. But that results in a very clear, I hope, and transparent budget for people to look at. So as we start looking at revenue, first one is state aid. And we'll get our last payment for this year around June 20th, and fully expect that to be fully funded, and that would result in just over 27 million this year from the basic formula. So when we look at next year, I'm projecting a little higher weighted ADA, not because of attendance, but because of our expanded summer school this year. And then you can see the same state adequacy target for both years. The dollar value modifier is a little higher for next year, which that simply looks at tax returns and determines and basically results because they realized that we have a higher cost of living in St. Louis County than other places in the state. So anything over 1 shows that you have a higher cost of living than the state average, basically. So you can see that projecting about $351,000 more in basic formula funds for next year. We look at tax revenue, which again is about 50% of our operating revenue. Current taxes, almost 3% increase, and that's based on the preliminary values that we get from the assessor. The prior year taxes, a little lower just because I'm budgeting conservatively. I'm budgeting at what the collection rate that we get. The last couple of years, the collection rate has been higher than normal, but again, we always like to budget conservatively, budget our revenue low and our expenditures high. And M&M surtax up a little bit. The protested taxes have not been released. We should get them tomorrow, actually. And so while the budget document is in process and I would not update the budget at this point, I could update you next week as to how we came in. But I don't want to actually adjust the budget at this point, just because the budget document is in process, and it is a lengthy document, as most of you know.
I got 2 letters so far. One company wanted me to protest my taxes. The first year I've ever gotten them.
Yeah. Well, and they'll focus on residential this year because that's the market that is actually going up. They will not focus on commercial probably because commercial, as we talked about previously, commercial property will probably decrease because of the pandemic and the recession. So in total, about 513,000 more than this year in our tax revenue. So our budget summary for the operating funds, can see about 2.5 million more in revenue, about 1.9 million more in expenditures. So looking at a budgeted operating surplus right now of a little over 786,000, and fund balance percentage staying about the same because of the higher expenditures. We look at a fund balance percent as a percent of expenditures. So again, this is only the general teachers and capital projects fund, does not include the bond issue fund or the debt service fund. We're just talking about operations. So during the process, these are the items that we have added to the proposed budget. You can see 8 elementary teachers. Those are new sections based on enrollment projections. 6 elementary reading specialists, 1 for each school, as we've discussed before, to help mainly kindergarten and first grade students. 3 elementary counselors, that would result in 2 per school. Right now, they have 3 counselors that share 2 schools, split their time each week. 4 EL teachers, and then 1 additional elementary social worker. That would result in 2 district-wide for the 6 schools, and adding a bilingual social emotional support specialist district-wide. Adding 1 middle school counselor and then a math teacher at each school. The one, again, the two middle schools share 1 counselor right now, so they each have 2.5. So we have 1 more, and they would each have 3 counselors at each middle school then. Adding a high school math teacher and 1 more counselor here, and adding the director of secondary education. During the process, we didn't remove anything from this year's budget into next year's budget. And when we look at enrollment projections, you can see for next year, projecting about what we had back in 1920. We did have a decrease this year. It was mainly in kindergarten, but going back up to about where we were in 1920, and you can see that in the future, pretty stable as we have been in the past. So I'll try to answer any questions that you might have.
Could you go back to that slide and talk about how many counselors?
Yes.
3 elementary counselors resulting in 2 per school?
Yes. So right now, each of them have each elementary has 1 full-time, and then another one that splits their time each week between 2 different schools. So each of them basically have 1.5. We're going to add 3 more, so each of them will have 2 counselors full-time. Same way with the middle school. Right now, they each have 2 full-time and 1 splits time in between 2 schools, so they have 2.5. We'll add 1 more. Each middle school will have 3.
Are we adding anything or changing anything at the international level?
So the social emotional support specialist is going to be focused on the International Welcome Center. We keep a close eye on enrollment in that space. If you remember, when we started the International Welcome Center, it went from 18 students to 30 within a year, and then we were on track to high 50s. Over the course of the last 4 years, enrollment in that program has really leveled off. We anticipate the enrollment in that program to start increasing again. And so as we do see those increases, we would look at some additional resources. But I think what you see in these positions is a heavy focus on social emotional supports, which is absolutely necessary coming off the year to come on.
And Brad, I'll also say that Julie didn't request anything else for IWC. She feels that it is, well, she's not in the room right now. But I will, but again.
She must have been sick that day.
We did not turn down any position, I think, within reason. Maybe we discussed a little bit, but Ms. Hahn, as you know, is always a proponent and she will advocate for these programs. And she feels comfortable with the staffing at IWC right now. Is that correct, Julie? Thank you. But, you know, counselors and social workers and support specialists, I mean, they're all in there. And EL for district-wide, so.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's an awesome budget right there. That's great.
Thank you.
Moving on to the agenda review and 3.01, proposed agenda for the regular business Board of Education meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Alvin. So board members, as we plan for the agenda for next Thursday, we're going to have a busy week. So we'll be together on Sunday for the graduation. Looking forward to Janaya being there with us as well. And Janaya is going to be on stage with the board during the graduation. We'll also be together next Tuesday for the AEL graduation. So I look forward to Janaya being there with us as well as the rest of you. And then on Thursday, we'll be back together in this space. The thinking is, board members, this would be the last meeting next week that we would hold in the lower lobby. Starting with the July 8th business meeting, we would transition back to the boardroom at the admin center. And if you remember, there is no July work session because it always falls on or around the holiday. We'd be back at the boardroom for July 8th. So for the agenda for next Thursday, when we go through the opening items and the reports, when we get to business items, as a part of our plan of action that we look forward to updating the board on at a later time, one of the strategies was an equity audit of all district policy. That's been completed by the Tooth Keeney Law Firm. There are two attorneys within the firm that specialize around the area of disparate impact, civil rights, and so on. So we will be hearing a presentation from them next week on their findings around their equity audit of district policy. Mr. Smith will come back around the construction update, and we look forward to sharing the information with you in advance so that we could make some recommendations next week. There was a request for an update around social emotional learning, and so Ms. Hahn will be giving an update to the board next week around the vision for social emotional learning in the district, as well as really creating a level of coherence around all of the strategies and actions that support wellness for students and staff. This was a request that was made of a board member, so Ms. Hahn will deliver the presentation. There's been some great work done this year in the social emotional learning department around the wellness teams that are guided by Ms. Hahn. So around the budget, so every year, board has to approve a budget by the end of the fiscal year. We have to hold a budget hearing, which is an opportunity for members in the community to ask questions around the budget document itself. So there'll be the budget hearing. We'll be seeking your approval of the budget document. Also, there's always an end of the year budget amendment that we seek your approval around. There's always the potential for last minute tweaking in the numbers. Dwight mentioned some data that we're going to be receiving tomorrow. That just allows the CFO a bit of flexibility if some of the numbers should change, but nothing substantive. If that would be the case, we would come back to you for an adjustment to the budget. Ms. Hill would be coming back around the meal price, some seamless summer option, as well as the food service bids. In the past, those are called bread and milk bids, but expanded beyond that. We have a number of personnel recommendations tonight, but this is right now prime time. We're getting late in the hiring season, so we believe that next week we'll handle a large number of the remaining positions. I will update the board tomorrow in the Friday memo. If there is a question of the number of remaining positions that are yet to be filled, I'll have that data in the Friday memo tomorrow for the board. And then we have space for board member comments next week. You can see on the consent agenda, the final number of program evaluations that we have for the year, as well as the professional development plan for the upcoming school year. We do expect to have a closed session next week to bring a personnel item to the board next week as well. And that's it.
All right. Let me switch gears here. Got to log back in. Since it's taking a little bit of time, I'm going to use the paper version. So do I just go ahead and move to the special board meeting?
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on, we have a special board meeting. And I need to go ahead and 1.01 call to order. Moving to 1.02, we need to declare a quorum, and we also need to excuse Ms. Vanessa Enriquez Limba.
So moved. I'll second.
That was like totally jinxed at the same time. All right, Dr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Lonis,
Yes.
Ms. DeGarden,
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Belgrica,
Sure.
and I vote yes. Moving on to,
Move we adopt the agenda as presented.
thank you.
Second?
Dr. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. Lonis,
Yep.
Ms. DeGarden,
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Belgrica,
Yeah.
and I vote yes. And then moving on to 1.04 personnel recommendations, Dr. Mike LaChance.
Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
I'm here to present personnel items 1 through 216 for your approval. I'm open to any questions you may have. Relocating to be closer to family in the Chicago area.
Mike, some of these extra duty things are divided into, I don't even know. How do we know who's doing what here if it's like 16.5% or something like that?
So Lee and Drew work through the extra duty positions at the high school, and often they are shared positions where two people will share the responsibilities, and Lee and Drew work with them. Typically, it is shared at a 50% where they're sharing the stipend. Sometimes it's shared in thirds. It depends on how they divide the work for the given responsibilities. You'll see in a previous update to the board, we had the percentages in there, and then honestly wanted to be consistent in looking back at previous personnel reports for those extra duties. It simply stated shared, so we went back and changed that to shared when.
Oh, so that's why I don't see any percentage.
Yeah, absolutely. But the percentages were there initially, and I realized that that was not a look that the board was used to seeing, so that would cause some confusion there, and I apologize for that.
It didn't cause confusion as much as it caused concern that we had like 5 people with 16 and 0.6% shared, and it's like, how in the world do we know who's doing what then?
Lee and Drew keep track of the responsibilities being completed. Often it's a group of teachers that work well together, and they apply for the role together to share the responsibilities.
all these at once?
Yes.
One thing? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, if that pleases the board. We could say-
Something that I need to pull out.
Yeah, there's quite a list.
Yeah, and I double checked it and I didn't see anybody.
As Dr. Kilbride mentioned, this is the prime time for offering contracts and a time when we're in a window of time where it becomes more difficult for someone to be released from a contract. So I appreciate the board being open to considering all of these personnel recommendations this week and next week.
Ruth, is it 207?
I
207?
know, yeah, number 34 and number 207.
Okay.
All the stuff's confusing.
Maybe 3 those, I'm taking those two out.
Okay, which numbers?
I'm sorry, Brandon.
34 and
34 and
Substitute
207.
teachers for the fall, yes, sir.
So there was a motion by Ruth. Ruth, do you want to restate the motion?
Move we approve numbers 1 through 216, I think is the last number.
Yeah.
Minus number 34 and 207.
Number 24.
I can't hear.
Number 24?
So Ruth, Penny's, do you amend your motion to include number 24?
Number 24?
Uh-huh.
Do we have 24, 34, 207?
Yeah, if Ruth amends her motion to include 24.
Let's see what we do. Sure. I need to amend my motion to include number 24 also.
Okay.
We have a second.
Second?
All right. Ms. Belbrook?
Yes.
Ms. Glover Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Garden? Ms. Lomas?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
What were those numbers again? Sorry.
24, 34, 207.
I motion to approve numbers 34 and 207.
And 24.
Well, we need to do that as a separate one?
Okay.
No, you could do them all together if you choose to do it.
Okay, and 24.
Okay.
Second.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Lomas?
Yes.
Mr. Garden? Ms. Glover Jones? Or no?
You should abstain.
You just abstained.
You should abstain.
You said yes. I thought we were-
No, we pulled them out.
We're doing 24, 34, and 207.
I thought you did.
There we go. Ms. Glover Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Belbrook?
Abstain.
I vote yes. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do want to mention that, as we've created openings, we've had, as you've approved, we've had internal applicants take those positions, which creates additional openings. So that has been a constant flux over the last 30 days. I did come prepared. If you're interested, there are 7 more teacher openings to fulfill at this point. 3 counselors, 3 EL teacher positions. We filled all the interventionist positions, 1 office professional position to fill, and 1 social worker position to fill. We will likely have some shifts, particularly as I'm aware of next week. I was making offers even before the meeting, and so next week we have people that may be moving from even one role to another role, which will create additional openings. And so this will be ongoing, and we will work hard to fill all the positions as soon as possible. I appreciate the board's approval of tonight's.
So you have 7 more that need to be approved?
That we need to identify and make offers and then bring back to the board for approval.
That ended up to 8 though.
Did I say what?
You said 3 counselors, 3 EL, 1 office, and 1 social.
And then 7 teachers.
And then,
Oh, in addition.
In addition to that, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Busy time of year.
it's busy. And I said 0 teachers aides, but I'm aware of one teacher aide that may be transitioning to teacher position with the board's approval that we will discuss next week. So, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Just a question while we're on personnel. You mentioned that at cracks we're going to have close to 600 or over 600 students. have we given thought to, I'm sure you have, because I'm always 2 steps behind, but given thought to having, say, another assistant principal there until the numbers decrease?
Yeah, we have a lot of conversations around staffing. We've leaned more into the social emotional supports. So that's where you've seen built into the budgets, additional counselors, additional social workers, additional interventionists. The thinking is if we can provide more social emotional supports, more academic intervention, there'll be less need for additional administrators. So we've leaned more on the impact directly in the classroom as opposed to additional building leaders, because the moment that we add an additional assistant principal at Kratz, we're hearing questions about additional assistant principals at the middle schools, and we'll really expand the team pretty significantly, because there are other buildings that can make strong arguments as well.
Right. I was just thinking about the workload on the principal and the assistant principal with doing classroom visits and evaluations and all that somehow we could lighten that load a little bit more. Would it be just have a temporary person, a part-time person, or however you want to put it, just so they don't have all that much more? I mean, we're gonna put how many more people over there?
Yeah, that's a good question, Dr. Thomas. And so also, as we look through the American Recovery Act, which is ESSER 3, we'll be working with you and a team to devise a plan over the course of the summer. I'll be sharing more information about what that is and what that could do to impact schools. And so not committed to adding more building administrators at this point, really committed to leaning more into the social, emotional, and academic support for kids. And that's based on, some of the earlier conversations we had as a board team about needing to do better around social, emotional heading into this year. I just, every action has reactions and things that are connected. If we do one at Kratz, we could easily do 5 across the district. And I don't believe we're in a position to do that yet.
Okay, so 2.0 closed session, moving to 2.01, we have a motion.
Motion to reconvene closed session per state statute 610-021 for the purpose of discussion of personnel agenda.
Second.
Okay. All right, Ms. Glover-Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Belbreca?
Yes.
Dr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Lonis?